You're sitting, right? You've done your jnana, done your study. Now, okay, you have whatever your siddhanta is, and now you're going to fix your mind. And that's what yoga is. Yoga is chittavritti nirodha. It's stilling, it's a radical proposition. Completely and utterly stilling the mind. Tada, then what happens? Tada, kim bhavati? Tada, then what happens? Drashtu svarupe avasthanam. Then literally there is the situatedness of the seer, of consciousness, svarupa, in its svarupe, in its own nature. Verse number 4, vritti sarupyam itaratra. Otherwise, vritti sarupyam is absorbed in the mind. So yoga then, so right there you have the whole metaphysics of yoga. First of all, it's dualistic. There is consciousness and there's everything else. There's prakriti, there's the mind, which is prakriti. Okay? And consciousness then has two options. Either it can be svarupa vastanam, situated in its own nature, or it is absorbed in other. The world, but through the mind. Vritti sarupyam. It's absorbed in the mind, and then through the mind and through the senses, it's absorbed externally. And Patanjali's Yoga Sutra then, and then Patanjali's yoga for Patanjali then is to attain a state whereby consciousness can be absorbed in its own nature rather than absorbed in anything else. Now, why a yogi would want to have that experience is discussed in chapter 2. Because when consciousness is externalized and flows through the body-mind, and attempts to seek happiness in the world of sense objects through the desires of the imprints of the mind, it suffers.
Right. So when we say the seer is abiding in its own nature, that's what we're saying?
Yeah, when the seer abides in it's not aware of the mind. The minute you're witnessing your mind, you're externalized. Consciousness is external. In svarupe vastanam, there's no awareness of the mind. It's svarupa, its own rupa avasthanam, situated in itself. There's no awareness of the mind. You're not being mindful. That's earlier stages.
Right.
But of course we can't skip those stages. But ultimately that state of pure consciousness is contentless. There's no content. So that's nirguna. It's nirguna, sarvavyapaka, it's infinite, it's all-pervading potentially. And Vedanta will say it's ananda. Otherwise, who was going to do it? If you don't throw in ananda, if you just say sat chit, well, it is, and it's conscious, I don't, who's going to sign off on that? Go to the forest for 50 years just for sat and chit? I'll be sat and chit right here, thank you very much. So you have to throw in some ananda there, otherwise, who would seek it? So, yeah.
So are consciousness and Atman the same thing?
Yes. In other words, if we try to find the seer, the best translation for drashtra, because that's the term that's used, drashtra and drishya, is but pure consciousness. And it gets confusing because often consciousness is used in Western philosophy to mean consciousness of something. So it helps if you add pure consciousness. And by pure we mean not mixed with anything else, not mixed with an object. If there's an object and consciousness becomes conscious of the object, it's now mixing with the object, so now it's aware of it. So if you use the word pure, it means it's not like pure milk. It's not mixed with anything. It's just pure milk. So better to say pure consciousness, to be very clear about how there's no word in Western language, because there's no history of that notion. And maybe in some mystical traditions, but even then, there's no clear history of that. So there's no real vocabulary. So then we have to create terms like pure consciousness.
Right. So then in that case...
and which is, by the way, which is nirbija samadhi, Asamprajñāta Samādhi, Kaivalya, within the sutras as svarupe vastanam. These 4 phrases are all synonymous in the Yoga Sutras.
So in that case, consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain?
No, it's not an epiphenomenon of the brain. In other words, it is not a neuron. Yoga would say you will never find the neurological correlate of consciousness.